Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or even tuning in on the podcast. Again, you can find the podcast via the link in the description if you can't catch the live show. Good morning to you, Jamie, as well. We've got some stuff to talk about today. We'll jump straight into the news before we talk breakouts, and we'll start with Stefon Diggs. Today's news isn't necessarily news, just some interviews that are going around, things being said by players about players that is just kind of fun to note. So we'll start with the Stefon Diggs story from this weekend, and that's actually what Case Keenum said about his time practicing with Houston the last week. Case Keenum said, yeah, it's just really cool to get back out there and see Stefon on the practice field and to watch him absolutely do some dirty things on some routes that I haven't seen anybody be able to do. He's a dynamic player, and he hasn't lost a step. If anything, he's gotten more savviness and can put some extra sauce on some routes when he needs to win. He's done a great job of continuing to build his craft and work on his tools. And I'm excited to see what he can do in the fall. I think he's hungry. There's obviously been a lot of success, and guys are very proud of what we were able to do and what Diggs was able to do. There's still some meat on the ball. We still want to get after it, and we want to finish with the confetti falling down and win the last one. So anyway, Case Keenum, as we know, played with Stefon Diggs in Minnesota. The famous Minneapolis Miracle was Stefon Diggs catching a pass from Case Keenum and housing it. So these are guys that have worked together before, and especially a few years ago. That was 2018, if I remember correctly, that Minneapolis Miracle. So it's been a long time. Case Keenum, though, having seen what Stefon Diggs did in Minnesota years back, says he sees a lot of the same now, and that Stefon Diggs hasn't lost a step, that he still has some sauciness out there, that he's playing with the chip on his shoulder, and that him and this Houston Texans team are ready to win the Super Bowl. The reason I brought it up is just because of Case Keenum's connection to Stefon Diggs from years past. I think it's important and noteworthy that he is saying that Stefon Diggs looks as good as he did years ago, and maybe even better, as he has some of that savviness and a little bit of that veteran presence that, maybe slows you down athletically, but speeds you up mentally and can make you that much better of a processor of what's going on in the field, which can just make you a better athlete. So I do think that while it is a one-year rental here in Houston, that Stefon Diggs is in line for a huge season. However, again, I want to note that will not come at the cost of the other wide receivers on this offense. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Stefon Diggs. There's plenty to go around for all three of these guys to feed, even if they all three stay healthy. I'm drafting every single one of them if they're staring me at the face at the proper value, which is their ADP. And Tank Dell, I think, is underpriced as well. So I want these Texans wide receivers, and I'm going to buy into what Case Keenum is saying, seeing that Stefon Diggs is looking really, really good at camp, hasn't lost a step, and is bringing some sauciness to Houston. Look for Stefon Diggs to be a decent value and score you some good fantasy points this season, guys. The next player we want to talk about is Dallas Goedert, and he's getting fired up by the Philadelphia Eagles offense, namely Kellen Moore. This is what he had to say. He's been doing a great job of just making the offense make sense, and we've kind of changed up the reads and different things like that throughout, but I feel like it'll play in favor of the tight end, the quick game a little bit, getting back to the pivots, the sticks that I got earlier in my career that went away a little bit. I'm really excited for how he uses the tight end and how he feels like they can be a big part of the offense and help us win games. The article talks about the tight end usage in Los Angeles last year. While Kellen Moore was utilized tight ends heavily in Dallas with Dalton Schultz, it wasn't necessarily the same in Los Angeles. But part of that was injuries and part of that was personnel, because even though Gerald Everett wasn't used a ton, he still finished second on the team in receptions. And Donald Parham had a breakout season as well, at least a career year for a player like Donald Parham with almost 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. So while the tight end wasn't necessarily a big focal point of the Chargers offense, they still saw some success last year. And I think a lot of that same could happen here in Philly. I don't think Dallas Goedert is going to get Dalton Schultz type volume, but he could get some Dalton Schultz type efficiency and at least score some touchdowns and get some interesting usage. And actually what I do find important is this quote here. And this is what Dallas Goedert said. I'm hoping that all year defenses cover A.J. Brown, cover Devontae Smith, and are worried about Saquon Barkley so that I can run free down the middle all game long. And I like that. And it's true. When you have so many pieces on offense, something has to give. And generally, it's going to be the tight end when it's 2 wide receivers and a running back that are athletic. This was the same reason that led me to Kyle Pitts last year. Now, it didn't necessarily work out, partly because of Arthur Smith utilizing Jonnu Smith so much, and partly because, the quarterback play was so terrible in Atlanta. But the philosophy is still kind of the same here. When you're looking at the X's of O of how a football team might affect or might, utilize their weapons on offense. So Dallas Goedert being a tight end on this Eagles offense, I think is very, very intriguing because, like he said, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, they're both going to be outside with safeties keeping their eye on them. The linebackers are going to be busy covering Saquon Barkley out of the backfield on top of the other safeties, or depending on how many safeties are out there, sometimes one, sometimes two, sometimes three. Either way, those safeties, those linebackers, really just the extra help on defense are going to be so concerned with Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and Saquon that there's not going to be a lot there to cover Dallas Goedert. Now, while, again, that might lead to some good efficiency, I still don't think that's going to be a ton of volume for Dallas Goedert. So I do just want to urge a little bit of caution there. I mean, while A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley are going to be covered, they're still going to be fully featured and get a ton of volume themselves. But what is left over will more than likely be some very, very valuable plays for Dallas Goedert, whether it be, a clutch first down, targets in the red zone, targets in the end zone, or just, a big chunk play over the seam. Either way, Dallas Goedert is probably going to be pretty efficient this season, and I am very excited to see what he can do. He's got a very decent value right now for what we've seen from him. He's only 29, and he's on, a high-powered offense. And I've seen people say, well, last year Jalen Hurts scored so many tush pushes. 28% of his points came from tush pushes last year. Is a lot of that going to be the same? And the answer to that is no. But also, you can ask yourself, would the Eagles still score those touchdowns without the tush push? And the answer is probably yes. So Jalen Hurts tush pushes, even if there's not as many next season, there's still going to be just as many touchdowns, but it could come from Saquon, or it could come from passes, or it could come from a different type of run play from Jalen Hurts, or still the tush push. But either way, I'm expecting some volume and efficiency to Dallas this season, and I think Kellen Moore is going to be scheming him up properly. So look for a pretty decent year from Dallas Goedert if he can remain healthy. That's kind of been the one concern with him, as he keeps getting injured. So that's the story in Philadelphia. Dallas Goedert ends that interview saying that he loves being in Philadelphia. He's going to give them everything that they've got, and he still feels like the best years are ahead of him. So we'll see what happens there. But either way, it's looking like he's going to be less covered this year, which is usually pretty, successful for tight ends. The next stud to talk about today is Breece Hall. Breece Hall talks a little bit about what he expects from himself this season, and this is what he said. Breece Hall said, "I ended last season on a good note. Just last season, still not feeling 100% all the time, but now I've had my first offseason to not just be trying to get back, but to get better. And I've gotten better this offseason. I'm a lot leaner. I feel a lot healthier. My knee feels a lot better, and I feel like I'm back to my old self." As we know, Breece Hall last year was less than 100%, and he's talking about how this is his first full offseason to where he can focus on getting better. Because, he comes in as a rookie, and yeah, it's about getting better, but more so as a rookie, it's about getting your feet wet and getting acclimated to the NFL. Unfortunately, he got injured much too soon, so his second offseason was all about recovery and getting back to the field. Now he's healthy. Now he's ready to explode in year 3, and I totally believe him. He said, "Really, it's just all on me. We have the team now. We've upgraded in every room, so I'm happy that we have the guys that we have now. Happy for everything I've had in the past, and now it's on me." He also talks in this interview about, Christian McCaffrey and how much he's done for the running back position. Talks about how he aspires to be just as good as Christian McCaffrey, if not better. And I just think that those are all great things. Breece Hall, as we know, is probably the most athletic and gifted running back in the league. And it's honestly not really even that close. Bijan Robinson is the closest to him, but he doesn't have the 98th percentile or higher workout metrics across the board or the efficiency that Breece Hall has had in his career. Hall really is a true stud, and with the right volume could genuinely be player number 1 in fantasy, and I don't think that's a hot take. I really do want to try to get Breece Hall everywhere I can this offseason, and I do really think that RB1, if not player number 1, is well within his range of outcomes next season. As you guys know, I'm not investing in Aaron Rodgers. I'm not investing in Garrett Wilson. I don't really trust this Jets offense. Could they, be good? Sure. Yeah. But I don't necessarily want to, assume that it's definitely going to work. We're still talking about a 40-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles in Aaron Rodgers. And we're talking about a fairly unproven coaching staff that cares more about their defense than offense. But one thing will be true no matter what. The only fact I know about the New York Jets offense is that Breece Hall is going to catch a fuck ton of passes. Excuse my language, but think about it. You have an old veteran quarterback who, doesn't have the greatest offensive lines really only has one like true weapon as a wide receiver, they're going to dump it off a ton to Brees Hall, and they will rely on his yards after catch ability. And he's probably going to be pretty damn good. You don't earn Brees Lightning as your nickname for nothing. Brees Hall has been electric when we've seen him. He's had multiple 10-plus reception games. Brees Hall is going to go on fire next season, and I really, really urge you guys to buy him while you still can. He's still really young, too. If you go to PlayerProfiler.com, and I need to pull this up to double-check his age, but I want to say he's just as young, if not younger, than some of the running back rookies this year. And that's, partly due to the COVID years and him coming out early, but he is literally only 23 years old right now, which is younger than a lot of the players coming out this season. Brees Hall still very young, finally healthy, going to an offense that's going to have to rely on catching passes out of the backfield with a less than 100% and old quarterback Aaron Rodgers. So let's go Brees Hall. I'm excited for him next season. And the last bit of news we have for you guys revolves around Marvin Harrison Jr., and it is what he is bringing to the Cardinals offense and what Kyler Murray had to say about him. Kyler Murray said, Marvin Harrison Jr. takes us to another level. When you've got a guy out there that is capable of winning one-on-ones, obviously he's got to go do it, and he knows that. We all know it. But as far as manipulating coverage and stuff like that, you've got a guy out there that can do it. Even if he's not open, he's still open. And I'm excited to be able to build that with him. When he does what he does, I fully expect our offense to be top of the league. Now, so Kyler Murray's getting very excited about Marvin Harrison Jr. There was a little bit of tidbit in this article that I found very intriguing and interesting. So here's what the writer had to say about Marvin Harrison Jr. Early in the offseason, Marvin Harrison Jr. made a point of lining up behind veterans during drills, understanding his place as a rookie. But by the end of spring workouts, those veterans had pushed him to the front of the line, acknowledging his standing in the core. Harrison said, I didn't want to come in here with a big head. I knew I had to earn everything. So just simple things like that. Let them go in front as they rightfully deserve. And then they'll kind of allow me to go in front now because they understand what I can bring to the team. So Marvin Harrison Jr. has come in with a proper head on his shoulders. He has come in and understood his place, but he's already gone out and earned the trust of his teammates and the hype from his quarterback. Now, of course, this is all stuff that we were going to expect anyway. I mean, this is, again, a prospect, a wide receiver prospect that comes around once in a blue moon, especially one as good as Marvin Harrison Jr. with the pedigree and the production that we saw from him in college. He is a stud, and the Cardinals are so lucky to have him. I'm just glad to hear every little bit of news coming out about him. As you guys know, I think he is just as likely to finish as the wide receiver one this year as, say, a CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, or a Justin Jefferson. This guy has a clear pathway to 150 or more targets on one of the better offenses in the league with not much target competition. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a stud. I'm drafting him in redraft, and I'm damn sure doing whatever I can to get him in Dynasty because he's going to be a legend. Get Marvin Harrison Jr. while you still can. I know that he has the rookie hype around him, but I still don't think that even if there's hype around him, we haven't seen the production yet, and there's still room to grow. The second he goes out there, gets that 11-catch, 100-yard, 2-touchdown game, he's probably going to be Dynasty wide receiver one. Let's be honest here. He has that potential in him. People are waiting for it to happen. The second a ceiling game happens from him, it is over. You will no longer be able to acquire him. So I again say buy him while you can. That is all I have for the news revolving some players. But as I mentioned at the top of the show, Bucky Brooks released a all NFL breakout team for 2024. And this is what he had to say for his offense. He picked a quarterback, a running back, 3 wide receivers, and a tight end. And his criteria was players that have yet to receive any All-Pro or Pro Bowl honors. So these are players that he thinks could garner Pro Bowl or All-Pro consideration after this season that haven't done it before. And so I think that that's important to note just because, there are breakouts that, everyone's term for breakout changes from person to person, really. So the criteria for this one is somebody that could make the Pro Bowl or be an All-Pro this season for the first time, not necessarily like a year 2 or year 3 thing, not necessarily hasn't met this threshold in a stat before, but just simply not had much media recognition for their stardom. The quarterback he chose was Bryce Young, year 2 quarterback. This is what he had to say about Bryce Young. A disappointing rookie season spurred a mass exodus from Young's bandwagon, but I believe last year's #1 overall pick can bounce back under new head coach Dave Canales. He went on, the quarterback guru just helped Baker Mayfield resurrect his career in Tampa, and now Canales can perform his magic in another NFC South city, helping Young regain his swagger in Charlotte as the coach reshapes the Panthers offense to feature more QB-friendly concepts with better weaponry at Young's disposal. The talented gunslinger could reemerge as the blue-chip player who won a Heisman Trophy at Alabama and entered the 2023 draft as the belle of the ball. No one's really going to push back against Bryce Young being his quarterback breakout choice. But I just want to put a little bit of cold water on his take here. Yes, Dave Canales has worked wonders on Geno Smith, on Baker Mayfield, and yes, they have brought in some weapons, but this is still a poorly run franchise with a weak offensive line. And Dave Canales could just be one of those guys who's a really good coordinator, but not a good head coach, right? Like we see that time and time again. So I'm not going to project him to be a great head coach quite yet. I want to see it first. I think Bryce Young could be fine, but personally, I still think we're a year or even 2 years removed from Bryce Young being a Pro Bowler or an All-Pro consideration. Jonathan Mingo still has to get a lot better. Xavier Leggett's a rookie. Deontay Johnson is good, but we're not sure if he's great yet. Like, there's a lot of big question marks surrounding this offense that I don't want to bet on it quite yet, at least to the ceiling of Bryce Young being a Pro Bowler. Could he be better than last year? 100%. In fact, I believe it to happen, with 100% certainty almost. I mean, last year was not good. He didn't even crack 3,000 yards. He only had 11 passing touchdowns. So I think he could easily, maybe cross that 20 passing touchdowns, maybe get that 3,000 passing yards. But All-Pro, Pro Bowl, I still think we're a little bit further away from him because we didn't really see enough from Bryce Young last year. My big plus for Bryce Young was that he was, for the most part, able to stay healthy. He only missed one game. But if you look at his metrics, they really, really were not that good. In fact, the only things that he was top 12 in were air yards, danger plays, and interceptable passes. So it's concerning to say the least, is what I'll say, because he was outside the top 30 in deep ball accuracy, in clean pocket accuracy, in pressured accuracy. So I want to see a bit more for Bryce Young before I say he's an All-Pro, Pro Bowl, breakout potential for 2024. However, I don't hate it. It's an okay pick. I know a lot of people are out there saying it. My pick under his, guidelines, it's going to be Anthony Richardson. Why wouldn't you just do the easy one and say Anthony Richardson? That's a guy that has MVP ceiling this season if he can stay healthy. Yes, we have the health concerns with Anthony Richardson, but what we saw from him in his weeks of playing last year was just an absolutely overwhelming ceiling. And so I think if Anthony Richardson could stay healthy, he's a lock for Pro Bowl or All-Pro consideration. Give me Anthony Richardson as my quarterback breakout over Bryce Young. Back to Bucky Brooks. His running back breakout is Devon Anan. This is what he said. Yes, Anan did burst on the scene as a rookie, racking up 518 scrimmage yards and 7 touchdowns in 3 weeks while looking one of the most explosive players in the game. But knee issues forced the running back to miss most of October and November, preventing him from a full breakout. All in all, Anan averaged 90.6 scrimmage yards and 1 touchdown per game, but he could be due for a yardage uptick in an expanded role that should lead to more touches and big play chances for the speedster. As Mike McDaniel continues experimenting with one of the league's most dynamic offenses, Anan could become the X factor on a unit loaded with potent playmakers. This one I'll buy, right? Like, as you guys know, I am selling Devon Anan in Dynasty. I don't think he should be RB6, but I still think he's a top 12 running back in Dynasty. Like, when I say I'm selling him or fading Devon Anan, it's not that I think he's bad. I love Devon Anan, but I don't quite like his value right now because of the health concerns, because of the backfield share, like the backfield split that could potentially just be a 3-headed monster. So I don't necessarily want Devon Anan on my fantasy team. But I totally believe that he can make the All-Pro or Pro Bowl, even if he isn't a true bell cow. He's so electric, and if he can stay healthy, he's going to garner all the media attention and get those accolades for sure. So I love that breakout pick for Devon Anan for sure, even if I don't like him in fantasy, and even if I am buying Jalen Wright while I still can. I still think that Devon Anan is going to have a really good season. I'm just a little bit concerned about his health and the potential backfield split to want to pay up for him at his fantasy price tag. But is he still a great football player that can make Pro Bowl this year? Hell yeah. So that's a really good pick from Bucky Brooks, especially with hearing the rumblings that he could be working out of the slot on top of out of the backfield. Devon Anan is gearing up for a breakout season. My breakout running back pick for me, though, is going to be Kenneth Walker. You guys know I just cannot quit Kenneth Walker. I firmly believe that he will easily be the bell cow on the Seattle Seahawks offense this season. One thing to note is that Mike Macdonald, when he was the defensive coordinator of Michigan for one season, Kenneth Walker played against that Michigan team. And Kenneth Walker is the reason that Michigan didn't win. Kenneth Walker literally carried the Michigan State Spartans over the Michigan Wolverines, giving the Wolverines their only regular season loss of the season. What did Kenneth Walker do? 197 yards and 5 rushing touchdowns against Mike Macdonald's Michigan Wolverines defense. That type of running back is so rare. And we are less than a year removed from Kenneth Walker being the dynasty RB1. And now he's way outside of that at like RB11 or 12, I think, and know that Mike Macdonald remembers that game. And I also know that Kenneth Walker is a true bell cow running back that didn't let Zach Charbonnet see the field much last year, even with Mike Macdonald gone. But now we have a defensive coordinator, a whole new coaching staff in general, right? And I think that Kenneth Walker, when they walk into that practice, and they've already seen it, right? Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet are two totally different athletes. Zach Charbonnet could get a few snaps, but Kenneth Walker is going to get 20-plus touches a game, and he's going to be awesome with it. And Kenneth Walker is going to finally earn his All-Pro, Pro Bowl consideration and break out in 2024. Expect it and buy Kenneth Walker while you still can. That dude is a true stud and one of the best running backs in the league with one of the best profiles in the league. It's insane. It's really insane that Kenneth Walker is so cheap right now. A stud, if you will. And I guarantee that Mike Macdonald remembers that Michigan State game and is going to want Kenneth Walker to get those 5 touchdown performances, 200 yards rushing again. And that was off only 23 carries. Kenneth Walker has the potential to get even more with a solid offensive line and a figuring to be a really good passing attack with Ryan Grubbs as well. It's going to be a pretty balanced offense that's probably going to rely on some play action as well. Kenneth Walker, I think, is ready for a fantastic season. Bucky Brooks has 3 wide receivers that he picked to break out. Jackson Smith-Njigba, Jaden Reed, and Khalil Shakir. This is what he said about JSN. The number 20 overall pick from last year could enjoy a breakout campaign and new offensive coordinator Ryan Grubbs' high-flying attack. With defenses intent on slowing down DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, JSN could flourish, whipping quarterback threes alongside Seattle's established pass catchers. The smooth route runner posted modest production last year as a third option, but those numbers could surge in an offense that features more concepts designed to get the ball to a dangerous slot receiver on the move. This is an easy one, right? Bucky Brooks is a smart man for picking this one. I didn't put him on my list, but I totally agree with it. I wanted to pick some different ones than him, but JSN's a fantastic choice. I think even if DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett stay healthy this year, there's tons of potential. I mean, we saw in Washington last year, right? Ryan Grubbs' offense. We saw Roma Dunze. We saw Jalen McMillan. We saw Jalen Polk all have really, really good seasons. JSN is the type of athlete that can be good regardless of where he is on the depth chart. And JSN, even if he's the wide receiver 3, is the more so slot wide receiver that's going to be starting out there all the time. I think there'll be more 3 wide receiver sets in general. And I do think that JSN is ready for a huge season. So I love that call. The next wide receiver he picked was Khalil Shakir, and he said the trade of Stefon Diggs opens up the wide receiver 1 role in the passing game. Although the team drafted Keon Coleman with the 33rd overall pick to fill the void, Shakir could take over as the lead receiver following a 2023 campaign that showcased his potential as a big play threat. With more opportunities in Joe Brady's scheme, the third-year pro could crack the 1,000-year mark. And I think this is a fine call, right? Khalil Shakir is figuring to be one of the wide receivers that is frequently on the field, given his size and stature, and of course his role in the offense. He's not a flanking wide receiver. He lines up more inside, and he'll probably be the one that's out there the most along with Dalton Kincaid. And so I love this call as well, although I do not think he will get All-Pro or Pro Bowl honors at all, even with a good season. That's going to be, reserved for Josh Allen. Like they're not going to pick a Bills pass catcher, even if they are good. It's going to just be Josh Allen from that offense, even if Khalil Shakir breaks out this year. But I think it's a solid pick, right? I think that he has a potential to lead this team in targets just as much as Dalton Kincaid does, just as much as Keon Coleman does. It really could be any of them. Again, I do think that this offense is going to be spread around a ton. I'm not investing in a single Bills pass catcher right now. But if it is, it's honestly going to be Khalil Shakir since he's the cheapest and, again, the one that's probably going to be on the field the most. I think he's going to get a ton of volume. I'm just, again, not sure what that means for touchdowns, yards, yada, yada, yada. But either way, I do see a breakout for him this year. Don't mind the call. I just think the Bills are going to spread it around a lot more than people are expecting right now. And I think with that, that's going to be hard for Khalil Shakir or Dalton Kincaid, for that matter, to be able to make Pro Bowl or All-Pro honors. His next wide receiver pick was Jayden Reed. This is what he had to say. On a team without a true wide receiver one, Reed could ascend to the top spot as a reliable chain mover with strong hands and dynamic running skills. Operating primarily out of the slot, the second-year pro is a rare find as a vertical threat, possessing polished route running skills that enable him to win on crossers, digs, and deep overs. Reed earned Jordan Love's trust during a fine rookie season that put the former second-rounder on the radar as the potential number one option in Green Bay. These two should make even sweeter music in their second season together. I like this call as well. I will say that one of the wide receivers I picked for my breakouts list is Christian Watson, but I think there's more than enough volume and opportunity to go around for both Jayden Reed and Christian Watson to break out in 2024. I think that Christian Watson will establish himself as the wide receiver one, but the wide receiver two on this offense in Jayden Reed is a totally fine option. Jordan Love slings it. There's tons of passing yards to go around, tons of passes in general to go around, to where, both of those receivers could have over 1,000 yards next season, and both could enjoy the breakouts. I do think, though, that unfortunately for Jayden Reed, I'm not sure if he's like the type of athlete that will get Pro Bowl votes from the fans, even if people like him. He's just more of like a Deontay Johnson type receiver to where people like him and we all understand he's good, but he just doesn't necessarily have the star factor that makes us all want to vote for him to make the Pro Bowl, or, the media to go those All-Pro honors out to him. But either way, I expect a great season from Jayden Reed, and I think that that's a good call from Bucky Brooks. Pippi, it's not singing time. It's not singing time. Oh my gosh. We'll play an ad break 1 second, guys, before we get to my breakout wide receivers.
It is NFL draft season and the wait is over. The Player Profiler Rookie Guide is available. It's live on the site now. Right there in the nav bar, click on the 2024 Rookie Guide to download it. It's so comprehensive. We're ranking and writing up more players than anybody. And this year, we're providing athleticism scores. We're doubling the number of advanced stats on each player profile. And guess who's back? Cody Carpentier. But it's not just him. It's Theo. It's Matty Kiwoom. It's John Lobb. And the Undroppables. All coming together to provide their composite rankings. And this year we're adding Superflex Tight End Premium because that's now become such a popular format. So get those composite ranks, get the write-ups, the comps, the stats and metrics you want. If you already have Dynasty Lux, you already have it. But if you don't, it's right there in the nav bar on playerprofiler.com. It's $20. It's not the first. It's not the most expensive, but it is the best.
Get that rookie guide. Last chance to get it, really. I mean, we're nearing the redraft season, then the draft kit will be out, but it's still important to learn all you can about this rookie classes. There's still tons of values to be found. So anyway, my breakout wide receivers for 2024 are as follows: Jameson Williams, Christian Watson, and Tank Dell. Now, though Tank Dell especially has broken out, but again, we're following the Bucky Brooks protocol of finding players that have yet to receive All-Pro or Pro Bowl consideration. Tank Dell with his injury last season did not get that, so perhaps a little bit of a cop-out, but I think Tank Dell's a great pick for this. Of course, we saw from him last season a really, really good year and a great connection with C.J. Stroud. I think that builds into year two, and I think that Tank Dell leads the team in targets, and we'll see what that means for the rest of it. But either way, again, I do believe that all three of those wide receivers in Houston are ready for a fantastic season, and I think Tank Dell is going to be a huge part of it, so I think that he gets a Pro Bowl or, All-Pro consideration this year, breaks out in year two. Christian Watson, kind of the same thing. He's had these injury concerns, but with this help from the hamstring specialist and, working on getting this thing right, I expect Christian Watson to explode in year three. Again, there's just so much volume to go around in Green Bay that I really do want any piece, but especially the hyper athletic wide receiver, Christian Watson, with an incredible 40-yard dash on top of his incredible size. I think that he is ready to break out if he can stay healthy. And if he stays healthy, he will break out and have an incredible season. So I expect that from Christian Watson. And a lot of the same on JMO. His first 2 years, they've gone wrong either for an injury or for his suspension. This year now, and towards the end of last year, he really did start bursting onto the scene. I think now with the full offseason, finally having a role as one of the wide receivers, Josh Reynolds is gone. And, earning so much trust in the playoffs last year, I think Jameson Williams is ready to break out as well. And with his athleticism, the type of playmaking ability that he has, I think he will earn some Pro Bowl votes and just be incredibly exciting. And one of those players that is just tantalizing in 2024. So JMO, Christian Watson, and Tank Dell are my breakout wide receivers. Finally, Bucky Brooks picked a tight end to break out, And you guys guessed it. He's going with Dalton Kincaid. This is what he said. With Buffalo poised to routinely utilize 12 personnel, Kincaid could become a household name as a dominant pass catcher over the middle. Although the second-year pro will share the marquee with fellow tight end Dawson Knox, the 6'4", 240-pounder should thrive as Josh Allen attacks defenses with an inside-out approach that puts the Bills' tight end in prominent roles. Kincaid took a little bit to get his footing out as a rookie, but still finished the season with solid numbers. I expect a big jump in production this fall. In fact, I won't be shocked if he ends up leading all tight ends in both receptions and yards in 2024. So he expects Dalton Kincaid to go on the Travis Kelce route this year and become the Bills' focal point on offense. Again, I do not believe that. I really do believe that the Bills will be spreading the ball around a ton between all their weapons as Josh Allen gets his footing and tries to get his chemistry with these weapons in the absence of Stefon Diggs. However, Dalton Kincaid, with his draft capital, on top of the production that we saw last year, it does stand to reason that he should have a breakout season. Again, I just really believe personally that they are going to spread the ball around. And we saw from Dalton Kincaid last year, he struggled when Dawson Knox was out there, especially in the red zone. So I am a little bit concerned on him for his fantasy football value. I don't really want to be paying the price for him in fantasy, but in, real life NFL, I like the breakout call. He should be pretty good this year. He should get a ton of receptions and touchdowns. But I just, again, I think it's going to be spread around. I think Khalil Shakir is going to be big. I think Keon Coleman's going to be big. I still think Dawson Knox is going to be there taking some catches away from Dalton Kincaid. So I don't know. I'm going to let the Bills offense play out. I think, again, really the only piece I want is Josh Allen. I think even like James Cook has some concerns with the running backs they brought in behind him to be more of the, between the tackles guys. But either way, I could see the breakout year from Kincaid. Don't think it's a bad call at all. I would just go with someone else. And in fact, I have been pretty chalky, with my breakout picks. Of course, I went with Anthony Richardson. That's easy. Kenneth Walker, maybe less chalky. J-Mo, Christian Watson, Tank Dell. Like, those are some easy ones. Those are some fun ones, whatever. My tight end, though, I wanted to get creative as there's been a little bit of an archetype going around in fantasy and in the NFL that just takes some time to break out at the NFL, and that is just the hyper-athletic tight end. And I think that Mike Gesicki in Cincinnati is ready to finally break out. He has not been a Pro Bowler. He has not had all-pro consideration. But what he has is insane athleticism. 96th percentile 40, 97th percentile speed score, 99th percentile burst score, 98th percentile agility score, 100th percentile catch radius because he's 6'6", 250 and runs a 4.5. And we've seen a couple big seasons from him. He has 2 700-yard seasons, 2020 and 2021. And in 2020, he had 6 touchdowns and was 8th in points per game. I think that Mike Gesicki going to Cincinnati is a match made in heaven. This is an offense that has used the tight ends before. CJ Uzomah and Hayden Hurst had career years there. And even Tanner Hudson had some weeks last year. I think that Mike Gesicki's athleticism at 28 and a half years old, I think he's finally ready to break out. And I think that we're going to see a really big season from the 4th most athletic tight end of all time in the Player Profiler database. I think it's time. And I think that I will compare him to Evan Ingram, who took until really 2 years ago to finally break out. And a lot of the same hyper athletic tight end that didn't break out until he was like 28, 29 years old. I think a lot of the same is here for Mike Gesicki. A lot of times with tight ends, it takes the right situation, the right scenario, the right quarterback, the right offense. And Cincinnati is exactly that for Mike Gesicki. He's an athletic tight end that can sneak around and run some good routes. They have blocking tight ends in Cincinnati. He's going to be asked to mainly be a receiver. They've lost Tyler Boyd in the slot. I want Mike Gesicki everywhere I can get him. Yeah, he's breaking out this year. Do we have any questions in the chat? What do I think of Neighbors? Do you guys think they'll be top 10 this season? I do not believe he'll be top 10 this season. Maybe top 10 in 2025. I believe that Malik Neighbors is more of a dynasty asset right now than he is a redraft asset for sure. One, he was not very happy about being drafted to New York. I think that plays a big part of it. 2, Daniel Jones is less than 100% right now, and he had such a bad year last year. So I don't necessarily, the offensive line isn't that much better. So I don't necessarily want to invest in Giants pass catchers at ceiling prices. However, He's still a great athlete. So if you don't want to wait on Malik Neighbors and don't want to take the risk, you could totally buy into him. But I would be very shocked if he gets top 10 this season, unless Drew Lock ends up getting the starting job. Then I could see it, because Drew Lock is a gunslinger that could lead to a ton of volume for Neighbors. But I don't think that'll come with Daniel Jones. I really, really don't. Cool. That should do it, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was another fun episode of Wake and Take. Go get Anthony Richardson. Go get Kenneth Walker. Go get J-Mo, Christian Watson, Tank Dell, and go get Mike Gesicki. Those players are primed to break out this season and are cheap enough in Dynasty at their current values. Go get them. And you guys, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to both Player Profiler and Player Profiler News. And make sure you have a magnificent Monday and a wonderful rest of the week. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.